I'm probably wrong about this, but here's something I've noticed. Everything you've ever been told about how to do something, how to run a business, how to handle a relationship, how to eat, how to sleep, how to grieve, how to succeed, all of it came from somebody who figured it out once, wrote it down, and then the rest of us just kind of accepted it like it was law. And I'm sitting here thinking, who decided the structure? Who's the guy that said, this is how it goes? Because I'd like to have a word with him, not an angry word, just a word, maybe two. Let me tell you what I mean. There's this thing that happens when something works. When a format clicks, when a routine lands, when a system produces results, we stop questioning it. We protect it. We build a little fence around it, and we call that fence the way things are done. And for a while, that fence makes sense. It keeps things organized. It keeps you from wandering off into the woods every time you get a new idea at 2 in the morning. But then one day, the fence starts to feel less like a boundary and more like a cage. And you're standing there, coffee in hand, probably on a porch somewhere, staring out at all this open space on the other side of the fence you built yourself. And you realize the only thing keeping you in there is you. That's a weird moment. It's uncomfortable because part of you wants to stay in the fence. The fence is warm, the fence is familiar, the fence has a good track record, and people know you as the fence guy. You've built an audience around the fence, but something in you keeps tapping on the inside of your own skull, going, yeah, but what if we moved the fence a little? Now, here's where it gets fun, because the second you even suggest changing the structure, anything, any structure, doesn't matter what it is, people lose their minds a little bit. You change your haircut, and people act like you joined a cult. You change your order at a restaurant you've been going to for 6 years, and the waitress looks at you like you just told her you're moving to Portugal. You change your opinion on something you said publicly, something people heard, and suddenly you're a fraud. You're inconsistent. You can't be trusted. But here's the thing, nobody wants to say out loud. The people who never change their structure, they're not loyal. They're not disciplined. They're not consistent in some admirable way. They're just scared. And I say that with complete love and zero judgment because I am absolutely one of those people on most days. I have eaten the same breakfast for probably 4 years. Same thing every morning. And I will defend that breakfast to my grave because it works and I know it works. And why would I introduce variables into a system that is functioning? That's not fear. That's efficiency. Okay, it might be a little fear, but here's what I've actually noticed. And this is the part I keep coming back to. Every single thing that has ever gotten better, every relationship, every business, every country, every human being who became a slightly less insufferable version of themselves got there by breaking a structure that used to work but stopped working, not blowing it up, not burning it down, not starting completely over in some dramatic fashion while your friends watch and pretend they're not enjoying it a little, just adjusting, shifting, moving the fence. The problem is we've been sold this idea that change has to be a whole event, a rebrand, a pivot, a reinvention. You've got to announce it. You've got to have a moment. You've got to post about it. Meanwhile, the most effective changes any person ever makes happen quietly on a random Tuesday with nobody watching when they just decide, yeah, I'm going to do this differently now. And then they do it differently and they don't explain it to anybody. And 2 years later, people say, "Man, you really figured something out, didn't you?" And that person goes, "Yeah, I guess so." And they don't mention the Tuesday. The dissolve part, though, that's what nobody talks about. Because sometimes you don't evolve. Sometimes you change the structure and the thing just ends. And that's also okay. And also terrifying. And also, if we're being honest, sometimes exactly what needed to happen. There are relationships that needed to dissolve. There are businesses that needed to dissolve. There are versions of yourself, personalities you wore for years, identities you built around a job or a title or a zip code or a person that needed to dissolve so badly, and you held on to them so long that when they finally went, you couldn't even be sad about it because the relief was too big. You ever had that happen? Where something ends and you expected grief and instead you just felt air? Like you've been holding your breath for so long that you forgot you were doing it. And then one day you just exhaled? That's a dissolved structure. And the only thing that made it hard to get there was the story you were telling yourself about what it meant to let go of it. Now, here's the part where I turn this back on myself because that's the only honest way to do this. This episode, this format right here, me talking for longer than 30 seconds, actually developing a thought instead of landing a punchline and running, is a changed structure. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't sure about it. The short form works. People like it. It's clean, it's quick, it fits in a commute, it doesn't ask too much of anybody. You can be half asleep and still get it. This asks more. And I don't know if you want to give it. That's a real thing I thought about. But here's what I kept coming back to. Some thoughts are 30 seconds long, and some thoughts need more room than that. And if I only ever give you the 30-second version of everything, I'm not actually telling you what I think. I'm telling you the edited version of what I think, the compressed version, the version that fits the format, and at some point that starts to feel less like discipline and more like hiding. So here we are, fence moved, slightly. Don't panic. The thing about structure is it was never supposed to be permanent. Structure is scaffolding. It's there while you're building something. And then ideally, you build the thing and you take the scaffolding down. And what's left stands on its own. But we fell in love with the scaffolding. We painted it. We hung pictures on it. We invited people over and showed them the scaffolding like it was the thing. And now we can't take it down because the scaffolding became the thing. That happens in careers. That happens in marriages. That happens in entire industries that should have dissolved 10 years ago, but kept propping themselves up with scaffolding while the building behind it quietly disappeared. The scaffold isn't the structure. It never was. So I guess what I'm saying, and I warned you, I wasn't sure I was right about any of this, is that the bravest thing you can probably do at any stage of anything is look at what's working, respect it, and then ask the question you're afraid to ask. What if we move the fence a little? Not because it's broken, not because you failed, not because someone told you to, but because you looked at the open space on the other side and you thought, I wonder what's over there. Sometimes you find out it's better. Sometimes you find out the fence was in the right place all along, but you don't know until you move it. And either way, evolve or dissolve, you end up somewhere honest, which, given where most people are spending their time, is further along than you'd think. Anyway, I'm probably wrong.